and welcome to the Healthy Half Hour podcast. We are your hosts, Richard and Karen Inslee.
The Healthy Half Hour podcast is your resource for all things healthy, and we will be discussing how to make nutrition, fitness and lifestyle choices work for you.
We will be sharing our own personal insights along with research gathered from working in the health and fitness industry for the past 10 years.
Our show is brought to you by the 7 Day Shred, which can be found at 7dayshred.com, and please feel free to visit our podcast website, which can be found at healthyhalfhourpodcast.com.
And now on to today's show. Hello and welcome back to the Healthy Half Hour podcast. This is Richard and Karen, as you probably heard in the intro. I don't know why we repeat that, but for some reason we do, just in case you'd forgotten in the last 20 seconds.
Fast forward it.
They might just do, yeah, and get past. Yeah, don't fast forward the front or the back. So we did one a couple of weeks ago, and here we are again. Like we said, through the summertime, there's lots to do. We've had some great weather here, a little dry, maybe need a little bit more rain. And we had a long weekend last weekend, and we managed to get all the gardens sorted out and a game of golf in. So yeah, it's been a great last couple of weeks. But
our hockey team's out of the playoffs. It's out of the Stanley Cup.
Still go Jets go!
Jets go!
They were still awesome. Did their bit. Karen, as you may hear, doesn't sound her normal chipper self.
No, Richard keeps telling everybody that he's telling the neighbours that he's bought a dog because I was hit down with a flu bug this week, and the coughing was so bad that Richard said I sounded like a golden Labrador.
Well, all the neighbours can hear whoa, 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 whoa. So I just said,
it's not quite that bad. But you had a couple of really quiet days because there were 2 days where I actually couldn't speak at all. So
bliss. Told you, been a good 2 weeks.
2 days. It was 2 days.
No, I said it was a good 2 weeks at the start.
Yeah.
The 2 weeks are just the cherry on the top.
Oh, the 2 days of quiet.
Peace and quiet. Anyway, so today's podcast is what the scale didn't say. A lot of times, again, we often get clients and, oh, well, I've been doing this for a few weeks or a month or whatever, and I've lost like 5 pounds, 6 pounds or something. Oh, I just, it's not working for me. I should give up. And basically we're going to look at today is kind of, yeah, you may have lost 10 pound in maybe a longer period of time than what you wanted. I mean, like we've discussed in other podcasts, there's a myriad of reasons maybe why. But again, it's not the be all and end all. So one of the things to remember with weight loss and basically how we process things like that is, you've probably heard of the old saying is that we can kind of do 1,000 good things and one bad one, and everybody will always remember the one bad thing that you did, especially your boss when you work for somebody. I don't know why that is. Well, I do know why that is, because we're actually hardwired for that. Through evolution, we're hardwired to pay attention to bad things rather than good things. So 10,000 years ago, you're wandering through the forest and there's a nest of snakes. You need to know that because that's a bad thing. You don't need to know where the fields of flowers are, and you can skip through them because you can do that kind of any time. So we need to kind of remember where the bad things are. And it's called negativity bias if you want to look it up.
And there's actually a video on social media right now.
What about snakes in the woods?
No, some massage that you can have done with this big, massive snake. And they put it around your neck, and it just scares the hell out of me. But
I didn't see that coming.
No, exactly. Yeah, there's some useless information.
So again, with that negativity bias, we need to kind of say we don't need to, but how we're hardwired is we actually will pay more attention to things that aren't going wrong as to things that are going wrong. So just put that one in the back of your mind next time you maybe jump on the bathroom scale. So why are we jumping on the bathroom scale? Well, weight is a tracker, and again, it's something we do use with clients. When I meet with new clients, I always make it an option. Do you want to track with your weight, or do you want to track with some other metric? Because not everybody does. Some people get a little obsessed about it, and again, I offer it to people as an option. if you want to lose weight quickly, move to Mars because their gravity's less than ours. So, I mean, if you weigh 200 pound here, on Mars you probably weigh 8 pound. Woohoo, there you go, problem fixed. And really, that's all weight is. It's a relationship between you and the gravitational pull of the planet. And we just use it as a marker, really. I mean, there are some people that need to know their weight. And I mean, if you're in a competition like a boxing competition or an MMA competition or a bodybuilding competition, then these people need to know their weight because that's how the competition is classified. A lot of times in like Formula One and other motor racing sports, the vehicle has to weigh a certain weight when it comes over the finishing line, which includes the driver. So the driver needs to know his weight because they need to know the weight of how much fuel's left on board, how much the car weighs itself. So all these things come into a factor. And if you've ever bungee jumped at the bottom of the tower or whatever they're throwing you off, they'll actually, well, if there's a reputable bungee jumping company, they'll actually weigh you and write it on the back of your hand in indelible ink. Why? Because they need to adjust the elastic for a certain length. So if you're basically 300 pound and you jump off and it's set for somebody who's 150 pound, you'll only do that once. So again, it's just, again, some people need to know the weight and some people don't. So from that point of view, again, we often get this thing of, oh my God, I've only lost 8 pounds or whatever, blah, 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 blah. But there's an absolute ton of other different things that can actually be beneficial to you or are happening within your body. And again, these things aren't always obvious. And so going back to that negativity bias, again, we're going to pay more attention that that scale didn't really move as opposed to all these different things that went right.
And I don't know if I've mentioned it before. I seem to recall that I did, but my brother and I are in this, we're in this keto UK Facebook group, but we never actually look at it anymore. But
why are you in it?
I just forget what I am in and what I'm not in. And this woman was there complaining that she hadn't lost enough weight, and I was asking her a question about, do you exercise, do you track body fat, do you do waist to hip ratio, any other trackers? And she says, and I explained to her what visceral fat was and how body composition is important to track if you've got the option. And she says, oh, I don't care about visceral fat and the fat that's around my organs, I just want to lose weight. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to dip out of this conversation. And her goal was, all she wanted was to see the number on the scales goes down, but she wasn't interested in any of the positive or negative benefits that go along with that number dropping.
So again, people tend not to look at the health benefits of obviously putting regular exercise into their lives and also adopting a cleaner diet. And I mean, one of the big things that can really come out of this straight away, again, it's another metric if you can track it is reduced blood pressure. So, I mean, it's something that's worth monitoring. And I mean, in Canada for about $100, you can get an Omron blood pressure cuff meter and you can check your own. And I mean, we've checked ours on not a regular basis, but every now and again, just to see how things are aligning. And I mean, even with Karen with her sickness,
yeah, my blood pressure went up, but I was telling my friend about it and she was freaking out because she has her own heart issues that she has to have monitored by her doctor. But I said to her that the flu virus is an inflammation in the body, and inflammation is going to increase your blood pressure. So I wasn't concerned, and it's already come back down again.
Yeah, so again, that's one thing to look at. So I mean, as your body composition does improve, and again, body composition isn't measured by a bathroom scale. All that is measured, like I said, is your relationship to gravity. And with body composition, I mean, we're made up of not just body fat. We're made up of muscle. We're made up of blood. We're made up of bone. We're made up of what you just ate, what you just drank, brains, everything that's all there.
Cells, tissues.
Everything all contributes to that weight on the scale. So, I mean, you could be having an increase in muscle mass and a decrease in body fat, but unless you actually check this, how do you know? And I mean, one thing that we use with clients, again, is an impedance meter, and we spoke about it before. And an impedance meter, it's not 100% accurate, but at least it's another tracker. So what an impedance meter is it's a little handheld device, and what happens is you put some numbers in, like your body weight, your age, your height, and your sex, so male or female, not how much you're having, and...
That'd be interesting.
True. So then you hold each one of the handlers, and on each handle is a small metal pad. And what it does, it actually passes a very, very small electrical current in one hand through your body and back to the other hand again. And there's an algorithm inside which basically looks at the impedance, which is the resistance. So how much electricity went out and how much electricity came back, which shows the body's resistance. And with an algorithm inside, it can basically come up with a pretty accurate level of what your actual body fat is, because electricity will travel through fat differently than what it'll travel through other tissues. So it's kind of not 100% accurate, like I say, because some things obviously make a difference, like whether you're hydrated, whether your hands are cold. And so what we do with clients, again, is we always tend to do it at the same time. So at least we're getting a consistent reading. But it just adds to that portfolio of different things you can actually use to track. And I mean, another one, obvious one, is a tape measure. So you can measure an arm, a leg, a waist, a hip, and your chest, and kind of have a look at how things are actually shrinking on the body. And Karen mentioned the weight to hip ratio earlier on.
So yeah, you measure your waist and you measure your hips, and then you divide your hips into the waist. And I think you have put it in the show notes before, the chart, but we can put it in again. I don't know off the top of my head the numbers, but it gives you an idea of whether you're that apple, that pear, or even that avocado, and whether or not you have a higher risk of heart disease. Because if you're an apple, then you have a higher risk factor of heart disease, because your waist and your hips are very similar in dimension. Whereas although women really they dislike having those bigger hips, but if you're an actual pear shape, you actually have a reduced risk of heart disease, and you're actually healthier than an apple. So, just using the tape measure helps not dial in 100% those risk factors, but it does give you a bit of a guide.
To expand on that a little bit more, if you're an apple, you tend to have more visceral fat. So that fat, again, that's more inside the body cavity and around the organs. And it's obviously, if you're a pear, then you tend to have more of that subcutaneous fat, which is the fat under the skin, around your butt, around your hips, and around your thighs. So that's basically the difference between them. You've often seen some men and women, and they've got skinny little legs and skinny little arms, and they're like a barrel. And then obviously that's that apple kind of shape. And so obviously, like with the pear shape, again, men and women, but more tendency with women is that they'll have those larger hips, thighs, and buttocks, because again, that's their preferred fat storage area. So one thing, again, we spoke about on a podcast not long ago was increased metabolism. So if you're exercising, you're going to increase those mitochondria in the cells. Obviously, this takes time. So again, if that you've been following a diet and exercise for a short period of time, and not a lot's happening, on a cellular level, things are turning round. So again, a little bit more patience and just let those things happen. And again, with exercise, you can start to increase that again as that metabolic rate increases. An increased metabolic rate means you're going to utilize more calories while you're actually sitting there doing nothing, because again, your body needs to turn over at that higher metabolic rate. And again, one obvious thing with exercise is that increasing core strength. So again, your weight might not be going down, but your posture might be improving. And again, from a health point of view, from breathing to digestion to a lot of other different things, if your posture's better, then your body's going to function at a better rate.
And you had a client, quite a few years ago, and she was struggling to lose what she thought was enough weight, and she wasn't seeing the scales going down fast enough, but she was down on herself, so she always walked kind of stooped over, and Richard told her, go to the office on Monday morning and just pull your shoulders back, hold your head up high, your core strength and everything's improving. Just hold yourself like more vertical. And people actually came up to her multiple times during the day saying, have you lost weight? Because she actually looked, by holding herself better, she actually looked like she lost 10 pounds, didn't she?
Yeah, she actually just, again, it wasn't It was just her posture and her demeanour that kind of made her look a lot
and she
more
beat
overweight.
herself up about it, didn't she?
Yeah,
so that's why
yeah.
she was hunching. She kind of was always holding her head down, wasn't she?
And a lot of the times people who are overweight tend to lack in confidence because, again, they kind of feel... Again, there's always a stigma attached to being overweight. And I mean, it's not that people who are overweight just sit there and eat themselves senseless. There can be other factors involved. So again, sometimes that low confidence, but again, just kind of rolling your shoulders back a little bit and walking in with a little more confidence can, again, pay dividends on... And people always love a compliment. So, I mean, from that compliment, and one thing, again, I say to clients, if somebody says, oh, wow, you're looking great, have you lost weight? Don't kind of cower into a corner, say thank you and move on, because it's a compliment. Take it, move on, and keep on working. Because, I mean, this always will be probably something you're going to have to work on as we move through life.
And then there was another client that you had. I mean, she looked great. She lost a huge amount of weight after her fourth baby or something.
Yeah.
And and like you tell her that she looked great, but like people would focus on she'd focus on the 5% that she didn't like, but she's like say, yeah, take the compliment, like you look fantastic. Again,
that's going back to that negativity bias. There's a couple of things wrong with your physique that you don't like, and there's a lot that's there to, a lot that's to be admired, or how well you've done, and we're always looking at the bad things.
Yeah, she did fantastic.
And one thing I said to people, we know enough bodybuilders, and again, they're ready to go on stage and they're never quite satisfied. There's always, I could have done a little bit more in my chest, or my bicep could have been a little rounder, or my tricep could have been this, or my quad could have been that. So again, people think, wow, six pack, they're standing there, they look fabulous, but they ain't satisfied either. So sometimes, again, just be happy with your lot, that, things are moving forward. And if you've been overweight for 20, 30 years, you're not going to take it off in 20, 30 weeks. Your body's got used to being in that state, so it's going to take a long time. And I mean, I don't know whether it's true, but there was a rule of thumb for every year you've been overweight, it's going to take that many months before things actually start to move. So if you're starting to lead a healthier lifestyle and you've been overweight for 20 years, it's going to take about 20 months for your body to actually change how it consists and, again, how it wants to run. Again, whether it's true, whether it's not, I've never done any more research into it. But for a rule of thumb, I mean, that may be what's just kind of holding some people back. And we have had clients that have kind of gone the long haul and all of a sudden things just turn round. So, I mean, there may be a modicum of truth to it, or sometimes, again, from a placebo point of view, people look at that 20 months and, oh, it's been 20 months, 20 years, okay, and they may step their game up a little bit. Who knows? But if it works, it works, and sometimes, again, that placebo can play dividends. One thing with females, again, does some strength training is obviously strengthening bones, and with osteoporosis, that's a big thing. So lifting weights can really help with that. And again, the scale won't show that bone density, but with bone density, it's really, really important. And one of the things, again, with being an older female, it's something you kind of got to look at, and not lifting 3-pound weights, kind of lift something a little heavier. So again, you're going to... Yeah, could go with 4.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're actually going to stress the bones from a compression point of view and from a flexion point of view. So again, bones are not hard things like rocks that don't move. They actually do move, only small amounts. But again, if that bone's moving, your body's going to respond by making it stronger. And a strong bone is a good bone. So, I mean, that's what you kind of need to look at, again, especially as you start to get older in life.
And it's not bodybuilding weights. It's, challenging weights for you.
Yeah, exactly. And to your own ability. So don't go out and buy a couple of 20s and start doing bicep curls and rip your bicep off. Huh. Yeah, not yet. Get 15s and 20s next week.
Okay.
So that, again, is one of the a good thing to do is obviously strengthening bones. One of the things with exercise as well is obviously improved balance, coordination and agility. I'm certified to teach and to work with older adults, and one of the things I work on with a lot of older adults are those 3 things. So balance, coordination and agility. And again, balance is a learned skill, and it's something that we can unlearn. So those things are really important. So again, scale might not be dropping, but your improved balance, coordination, agility, they'll help you. A lot of the times, again, it won't help you falling, But if you get into a fall, you'll be able to stop yourself falling with that improved coordination and core strength, so the damage will be less. So again, if we fall by accident, I'm not saying that if you do those 3 things, you'll never fall again, but obviously accidents happen. So the outcome from an accident will probably be better because you've exercised and because you've got extra core strength and that coordination, and again, reduced injury risk. So as we get older, that's certainly something that's really beneficial. A couple of things that Karen, we tied in, so Karen mentioned early on, was like the anti-inflammatory benefits. You're reducing inflammation, which obviously then ties into you improving your immune system, and also that assists in stress. So all those 3 things are kind of all tied together. And also, I mean, we've often had a bad day at work or something. We've come out and hit the treadmill or the elliptical or hit some weights, and it can be utilized as a stress management. Why? Because we can take our anger, if you want to call it that, out on it. And also there's a lot of good things happen with endorphins and the happy brain chemicals that kind of get activated too when we exercise. So again, even though the scale's not dropping, maybe you just feel happier in yourself. Maybe your stress is a little better. Maybe just, things are just working better for you, and you kind of need to just step back away from the microscope. And again, like we've said before, take that 10,000 foot view and have a look at, again, how you're feeling.
One of the things as well that can be a benefit that obviously the scales doesn't show is improved blood markers. So as Richard mentioned earlier, I mean, we go for our annual medical here
Annually,
yeah, every year. we're often late going for it. But again, like blood markers, so things from like electrolyte levels, like thyroid markers, like just blood sugar levels, there's a lot of blood markers that can be improved as a result of good nutrition, using some functional exercises, and just keeping a check on them. I mean, we check our blood sugar, again, like we do our blood pressure we just mentioned, didn't we? Mm-hmm. So, we're not obsessive. We don't do these things all the time. But again, it's just good to have like trackers that you can check yourself, or make sure that you really just do go to your doctors once a year and have it done. Because sometimes, I mean, if you're not going to the doctor and having your blood markers done, you miss a year, then another year, it can maybe a little bit too far down the road, and the scales is not going to show those results.
Well, no, and I mean, people can get pre-diabetic. So, I mean, if your blood sugar starts to creep up and you don't know, basically you can go to your doctors 1 year and next thing, oh, look, your blood sugar's this, so now you're pre-diabetic. So now all of a sudden you've been put into that bracket, and your doctor may want to give you medication like metformin or something to try and bring your blood sugar down. And again, like Karen says, you're eating more healthily, you're watching how much processed sugars you're putting into your body, you're exercising. Naturally, your body is going to take care of that when it comes to blood sugar, and your blood sugar is going to reduce because there's not as much floating around the system. And as we said in one of the other podcasts, there's a lot of things happen from a cellular level when you start to increase your exercise. So again, one thing the scale won't tell you is that now you're not pre-diabetic anymore, and your blood sugar's moved more into a manageable level, which takes weight off your pancreas for a start, because again, you're not producing tons of insulin to try and keep up with that. And again, these different metabolic things that can happen that the scale doesn't show, but again, it's all in a positive direction.
I was just having a thought.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just like sitting there thinking.
Holy.
There's those people that say,
we should do this more often.
Muscle weighs heavier than fat.
But it does.
I love that one. It's just like, no, it doesn't.
It does.
It doesn't.
Oh, you broke my heart.
Just fat takes up more space than the muscle.
It's a volume thing.
And we've even seen like fitness professional friends like do newsletters and put this in newsletters, and we're like, how long have you done this job for? It's
they just changed the laws of physics.
Oh, okay, right, yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you listening have looked at that picture on the internet. There's a lump of fat and a lump of muscle, and they both weigh a pound. But the muscle is probably a third of the size of what the lump of fat is. So it's not that fat weighs more than muscle, it just takes up more space. So like Richard said earlier, when you're exercising and you're increasing your lean body mass, you might be building muscle. Your numbers, like on the tape measure, might be shrinking, but the numbers on the scale might not be going down as quick. And it's not because like one fat or muscle weighs more than the other one, because a pound of feathers still weighs a pound of fat weighs a pound of water weighs a pound. It always, I actually did a live Facebook video on this. I'll have to like see if I can find the link to it.
You love a rant.
Yeah, it was quite entertaining, but yeah, so it just reminded me that that's not what the scales will show.
No, and one thing the scale doesn't show is how much more energy you've got. I was talking to a client the other day and she said, wow, just way more energy and just sleeping better and everything. And she just feels better in herself. And she's got a high stress job and it's really, really helping her again with that stress management. But she used to come home from work and just kind of flop on the couch. And now she goes on the treadmill or does lifts, one of the routines I've given her, just for like 45 minutes in the evening. And she's just finding life's way better right now. Again, she's one of the, oh my God, the scale hasn't moved kind of thing. But it will, and it is, slowly but surely. And she was saying to me the other day, she's never worked so hard to lose weight. And it's not coming off quickly, but at least it's coming off, because other things she's tried and it's never happened at all, or she's lost it quickly through some quick fix thing and put more back on again, which again is another podcast in itself. So again, energy can have a bigger factor, and that takes us all the way back to that increased metabolism and again that increased mitochondria, because again they're the little energy cells or energy parts of the cell which actually kind of produces that energy in those little factories. Sleep's another one, and she was saying that going back to that last client I mentioned, that again the exercise in the evening, not too near before she goes to bedtime, but just really helps her sleep, because again it just kind of gets those endorphins going and just burns that extra stress energy she's got that kind of hangs around at the end of the day. And rather that stress energy building up and keeping her awake, it's actually putting her to sleep now, which is way better.
Well, then with me, it does the complete opposite. I can't exercise past a certain time in the evening because I end up wired and I can't sleep. So it depends on the individual, really.
Yeah, and she's the same thing. She has to exercise around 6:30ish, because again, if it's like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, then yes, those endorphins will tend to wire you. But on the flip side, I know people that have work out late in the evening and like they're out like a light. So really, again, we just wanted to go over this list of things. And I mean, as you're listening, you're probably thinking, well, these are all obvious. Well, they are. But again, when we're getting to that negativity bias state or kind of area in our heads that we kind of, oh, well, it's not really working out for me. Well, it is probably really working out for you. And a lot of things are improving other than the scale. The scale may be the last thing to move. But again, don't just give up because the scale didn't move for you, because again there's a lot of other things that maybe we're not checking. Like Karen says, check your blood pressure if you can, check your blood sugar if you can, have a look at those markers too and see how things are improving. And again, there's a lot of other things that will improve that again, like I say, we're not actually necessarily checking. So giving up is the last thing you want to do. And like, again, it's an old thing, but it is a lifestyle thing. And this lifestyle, these changes, and I mean, there have been shown improvements in longevity to people who, work out and then eat clean. It may not add years to your life, but it'll add life to your years, as one of Karen's favourite ones. So, I mean, say you live to 80, and you, in your last 10 months or a year of your life, you go into ill health and then you pass away. In my mind, is better than living to 65 and then dragging an oxygen tank around with you, or being laid up in a bed for 15 years because you can't move because you're overweight, or you've got metabolic issues, or your joints started to crumble and things. So again, it's enjoying those years and trying to add to, you're not necessarily going to add to the years, but you're going to add to the quality.
And one of my boot campers, she's 84 this year. She does burpees, everything, and she's currently in Southern Ireland. She's been sending some emails and photos, and there was one email came through, I only managed to walk 20 kilometres today. And I'm like, okay, you're 84. And, she's like been to the Blarney Stone. She's been here, there. She's been around Scotland and up the east coast of England. And she's just everywhere. And if she's not moving and active, she's not happy. And she's just like a testament to, looking after yourself and moving, eating good, and yeah, she's 84.
And again, there's no guarantees in life,
No.
so I mean, you never know. But I mean, I'd rather stack the deck in my favour or our favour as much as we can, and again, see where the journey takes us. But again, if you're not stacking the deck in your favour, is it worth not doing it because the scale didn't say what you wanted it to say? So, wrapping this one up, I think we've pretty much covered it. And in next week's... Well, not next week, because again, it'll probably be another couple of weeks again, because we're busy.
Depends if the weather's bad.
Yeah, it depends if the weather... Yeah, if it's raining, then we'll come in here and do this. But next week's podcast will be all about prepping and planning. See you then.
That's all we have time for right now, but we do hope that you join us for our next show. And if you want to contribute to an upcoming show by suggesting a topic that you would like us to discuss in more detail, then hop over to our website, healthyhalfhourpodcast.com, subscribe to our podcast and submit your suggestions. The Healthy Half Hour Podcast was brought to you by the 7 Day Shred, and don't forget to share our details with your friends and review our show. Until next time, thanks for listening.